Have you ever experienced a God wink? You know, the kind of experience you know without a shadow of a doubt that God stepped in and gave you a big old wink from heaven. I'm your host, Cindy Spar, broadcasting from Office Evolution in Troy, Michigan. I am the founder of My Collective Network and My Christian Business Network, two amazing business networking organizations. I am a firm believer that there is power in sharing God wink stories. Think of it as a way for people to shine their light on Jesus, one wink at a time. In Matthew 5:14, it says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." Welcome, everyone. Thanks for listening in. My name is Cindy Spar. I am the host of the God Wink podcast. And today we are going to hear from a wonderful friend of mine at church, and she owns her own biz. Of course, you guys know I love business owners, love to network with business owners. But I had actually heard an amazing story from our guest today, Veronica Lopiccolo. And guys, I just had goosebumps when she shared the miraculous thing that the Lord did. So before we dive into your God wink today, Veronica, please share a little bit about you with our listeners.
I am a mother, a stepmother, a wife, a blessed child of God. I own a business called All Things Possible Wellness Center that allows me to provide a space that's full of hope and healing for those that need outpatient mental health care. And I'm just honored to serve my community in any way possible, however God needs that to be, whether it be serving my employees to help others or my own caseload that I manage as well. And just being out in the community through my church. I really just feel called to do whatever God needs me to do in whatever way.
I love that. And you have quite a few locations. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about where you guys are situated?
Yes. So the main office is located on 15 Mile between Garfield and Utica at 16645 15 Mile. That location houses our psychiatric provider as well. And then there's a location at Shaner and Canal, and there's a location at 9 Mile and Mac. So
how do you keep up?
I have an amazing team that, throughout the years of this next coming year, 2025 is going to be 10 years that All Things Possible has been in business. And God has been, I feel like when you really align yourself with God and be trying to do His will, great things happen. And so this business just kept growing and growing and growing. Some days still I'm like, God, really? Okay, just keep using me. And the blessing is He has brought so many amazing employees that have become friends over the years to me to help me manage this so that we can serve others. And that's just been the greatest blessing. Like my original 3 hires are still with All Things Possible. We had our core 4 dinner the other night. We do every December just to celebrate what God's done through All Things Possible. Just amazing.
Now, did you come up with the title because of the Philippians scripture?
Yes. That scripture, but also Matthew with Jesus is right. Same thing. With man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Yes. 100%. I was at a counseling conference in Orlando, Florida in March of 10 years ago, at a conference, still finishing my internship for my graduate program. And I was just praying and thinking about, I knew this is what I was doing all along, even before I graduated. And because I prepared for it, I did payroll, I did medical billing, I managed other people's practices so that once I got my license as a therapist, I would know all the parts So I just kept praying about it, and that Bible verse just laid right on my heart. So I registered the name online before I even got my license to make sure that it was available in the state of Michigan and through the IRS, and was like, okay, golden, it's done. Now just gotta help me finish the rest.
Yeah, it's we all try and lock it in quickly. I know people that'll buy domains just to buy them, like so they can sell them off.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah, well, I really relate with the All Things Possible from episode 1 of the God Wink that kept coming up all the time is All Things Possible, Philippians. And it really ties well to mental health because I think a lot of times as people, we get bombarded, overwhelmed, and get anxiety from it. And God just says, hey, come to me and I will give you rest. You can do all things. And it sounded like you did do all things when you first started off.
Yeah. I just felt I needed to know all parts so that I could effectively manage and help this grow if it was meant to be God's will. And just the way everything just kept expanding and expanding and expanding. There was no doubt in my mind that it was God. So
Man. So how was COVID treating you with the business? Was it an overflow?
it was a little worrisome at first. I had made the decision to move the main office from 16 in Harper to 15 in Garfield to double the space again for this office right before the state shut down. So I had to meet like the landlord and all those people for like inspections from the township. And we were all in gloves. And I was like, do I shake your hand? Because it was literally the week that the state shut down. And I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to shake hands. Here's a check here.
Oh, man.
And luckily, because then I forgot the word they used, but like a person that could operate, like, you know what I mean? Like healthcare workers were, able to work still. So I was able to pack up the other office. It was hard at first to get a moving company because they're like, we're all shut down. And I'm like, I'm a healthcare office. I need my stuff moved. It all worked out in divine order because God is so amazing. But it worked. And I did what I had to do, buying, air purifiers for all 16 offices just at this location, and sanitizer and masks and what we needed to do to serve the community.
Yeah. If you can make it through COVID, right? You can make it through anything.
Yeah.
Well, Veronica, I would just love to have you share with our listeners your God Wink story. It gave me chills.
Oh, I would be honored. I've been reflecting and praying about it and talking with my pastor and other peers too, because God is just so good. And this isn't the first really huge God wink I've had. So I'm like, okay, God, now what's next? So I'll say the other part fast because it'll tie into this, that like, by the grace of God, I'll have 25 years clean on December 28th. And through my addiction, when I walked away from the church and was walking in sin and surviving childhood abuse and trauma and other stuff, and then walking in that lifestyle, more trauma happening. I was gang raped. I was, in an abusive relationship where he beat me quite often. And he had always said, if I can't have you, nobody can. And I knew he meant that. And when I finally left him after some years of hell, pretty much on earth, he did keep his word, and I knew he would. And he actually threw a knife across the room into my head and left me to die. And I was, by the grace of God, that time found by somebody who was dating the guy whose apartment it was. She showed up and found me on the ground with blood everywhere and a knife in my head. And that was part of the end of my journey of getting clean and walking away from abusive relationships. And God redeemed me through that and saved me through that. And then I did years of therapy to help other people, to help myself from all the trauma and pain, some childhood stuff, and, some stuff in my addiction. And that therapist saved my life. So, her and God and my involvement in the church helped me to heal. And so, like, when I went to go into grad school, finally, to be a therapist, I actually contacted that therapist who helped me for years of weekly therapy process all my trauma and addiction stuff. And she was one of my recommendation letters to be a therapist to help other people through their trauma and pain. So that was a whole God story, and that I get to use those traumas without disclosing my personal things to my clients I get to work with, but knowing I know that pain to help them better from all those things that God brought me through. So fast forwarding to a few weeks ago, I was like, yay, I'm doing good. I've, been serving God and doing my business and, loving the life he's given me, a survivor of those traumas of being stabbed, of all these things that I was with my brother on a double date, meeting his new girlfriend, and my husband at a shooting range in the area doing sporty plays. And we were at the station, and I sat on this bench because it was cold, so I was like cuddled up, and it was cold, so I had on like a winter bib thing, like the leggings with the things that clip over your shoulders, and
real sexy.
I'm like, I'm meeting his girlfriend looking like this. I'm like, well, whatever. She hopes she just likes my brother. But so I'm all bundled up, and I sat on this bench because my brother was gonna shoot plays first with his shotgun, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a bullet came shooting right. I got shot in the stomach. Immediately I was like, oh, and keeled over because it hurt really bad. And while I was keeled over, I looked over to yell at my little brother, thinking a piece of clay came at me when he shot. And then I realized all 4 of our shotguns were still and I was like, okay. And then my head was like, a clay wouldn't come fast and hard directly at your stomach. It would have came down on me. Mm-hmm. And then looked down, and literally the bullet was at my feet and still hot. My husband and I picked it up, and he grabbed it and was like, what in the, and then we both were like, I just got shot. Makes absolutely no sense but God. No sense but God, that it's, in hindsight now we've looked through all the details, and my brother, engineering brain, is like, the only thing that makes sense is someone was outside of the rifle range on the property and probably accidentally discharged their AK-47, because that is what I was shot with. And that's the only thing that makes sense. So with that, the EMS and the police showed up very quickly. And we're like, you are the luckiest gunshot wound victim we have ever seen, and telling me to put my bullet on a necklace and to buy lottery tickets and all of this stuff. And even we're holding the bullet and confirming this is an AK-47 bullet, a gun of war, you should be dead. And then they confirmed, looking at the rifle marks, that there was no ricochet. So the bullet only went directly into me and didn't bounce off anything. So the only thing, now I've been okay, God, wow, you brought me through some other really huge things that I shouldn't have survived. And now this.
You're like Donald Trump over here.
Someone just said that to me yesterday. Trump took a bullet too and just grazed him. I'm like, yeah, thank you, God.
I have to say too that you had texted me on, I think, Saturday night, and I didn't see your text until I was at church after I think I even served in second service or something. And I walked into our sanctuary, and I'm reading, and all I see in the text is Veronica, and my mom's name is Veronica, and all I read is, I've been shot seriously. And so I'm standing there, I'm like, wait a minute. And then I was like, VL Lopiccolo. And I remember Kimmy came walking by, and I looked up at Kimmy and I go, did you know Veronica Lopiccolo got shot at? She goes, oh yeah. And she was here in first service. I'm like, what? How does a woman get shot at? And then she shows up Woodside Chesterfield for the first service.
Well, I had kids check-in and prayer team service for the first service, so I had to show up to fulfill my commitments. My stomach hurt really, really bad, but I had to I don't like to not show up for when, my word means something. And God saved my life again the night before, afternoon before. So it was like, I'm showing up.
Wait. So you're on the prayer team. You show up to first service, and please tell me that someone like prayed over you.
People were coming up to me crying and hugging me. I'm like, I'm so glad you're here. Yes. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be praying. So, yes, God is so good.
Man, that's crazy. Well, Veronica, we're just going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to hear how your life changed after that moment. Like, those moments when you're just in such a deep reflection of, man, I must have a purpose. And you just start to go really deep spiritually with it of God saved me from a bullet. And you like have these life experiences of I could be dead right now. And, gosh, I can't imagine. So we're going to just take a quick break and we will be back in just a moment.
Thank you.
Hey, Godwink listeners, this is Joy Starr. If you're looking for a trusted partner to ensure your home is safe and sound, look no further than Win Home Inspection, a veteran-owned business proudly serving Detroit metro area for the past 5 years. With a heart for serving this Christian community, Win Home Inspection delivers top-quality, reliable home inspection services you can trust. As a partner of the Godwink podcast, Win Home Inspection is offering a special healthy home inspection for just $249, a 10% savings exclusively for our listeners on the Godwink. Simply mention the Godwink podcast when scheduling your appointment to take advantage of this offer. Whether you're buying, selling, or just maintaining your home, let Win Home Inspection give you a peace of mind. Call 586-500-0099 or visit our website within the podcast notes to book your inspection today.
I've spent a lot of time reflecting on, wow, God saved me from something really huge again that could have killed me. And the weight of it isn't lost on me, that I know God has a purpose and a plan for my life. With it came a lot more anxiety, like, oh my gosh, the things I do to serve his kingdom today are a lot. Like All Things Possible with 3 locations, 40 employees, and then the hundreds of patients that walk through the door weekly. I'm like, what else? I'm like, my plate's full, God. But then I was like on my knees and like, I can't ever think like, well, don't give me more. Like, I've never been that way. God has walked me through some pains and some trials and saved my life multiple times. And someone sent a Bible verse to me about like, right, no weapon formed against me, right? And I was like, oh, yes, seriously, literally no weapon formed against me. A literal AK-47 bullet did not take me down. I should be very badly harmed or dead. Like the sheriff on the phone was like, that's a gun of war. And I'm like, I know.
Uh-huh.
So I've really just been praying about it. And like, God, I've spent more time than I normally do, like extra time on my knees saying like, use me. I try to start every day of my life saying, help me be your hands and feet and voice to those that are broken and need it in the world and need to hear you, like help your words come from me, help your actions come from me. 1 John 3 is one of my like actions and truth. That's what it's all about. So like, how can I be that? So I've spent a lot of more time almost like begging with gratitude of like, let me help be and do that and do your kingdom come in this world. And I don't yet know what that looks like since it just happened, but I just keep showing up and giving God the glory. Like even in that moment when the sheriff and EMS, like tons of them showed up and I am an introvert, I wanted to like escape into the wall. Like I was like, oh, all these people are coming at me. And I just, buy a lottery, buy it. I was like, no, there is no such thing as luck. This was God. You guys just witnessed God. That was all I could keep saying there. And I said that in the ER too when they were doing my CT scan to double check everything. Like, no, it wasn't my phone case. It wasn't right. it was God. There's no other reason. And yes, that makes me feel a little more like, okay, I'm here for more of a purpose. You know, my pastor called me when I was in the ER and was like, it's those abs of steel, and was laughing. And I'm like, oh yeah, those
Oh boy.
never had abs of steel, pastor. But then like was like, no, but all seriously, like God literally put his hand down and said, not her, not yet, and like softened the blow, because that's the only thing that makes sense, since it was directly into me. So I feel like I did quite a good job. I've tried to live every day like, how can I be your hands and feet in the world? But now I feel like, okay, what else do you need from me, God? Like, use me. And so that's why I've shared this story, even though I don't, you know, I'm not always, I keep sharing it, like, because I know God gets the glory in everything when we're doing his will and doing his work. The armor of God protects us, and the enemy can come at us in any way, and God's got us. So I'm just going to keep sharing about that and asking how next he wants to use me to serve his kingdom and to grow his kingdom.
You know, too, I think about, imagine like how many people you hear that the enemy works on in their thoughts, right? In their mindsets. And you have this outreach, right? Through your business, mental health and wellness, that I oftentimes look at it like, enemy's got to highly dislike you. You've got to be a target for him. Like, if I could take down the woman that started all of this, then I'm going to be able to have my way with it. But God's like, you're not getting her. Her time's not up. So just to think the impact and that solidification, that confirmation of the Lord saying that you are doing something big, something purposeful, something to the kingdom, something that's saving eternal lives, because you are using your gift in mental wellness.
That isn't lost on me, that feeling like that's a truth from him. You know, just I had taken that week off work, that next week off work for Thanksgiving anyway, just to be with my family and to relax. So God knew I needed it anyway, since I was getting shot that weekend before. So I didn't know, right? But the week was already off. So since I've been back, like some of my, because I have 3 offices, I go to each one day a week just to connect, have my own caseload and connect with my employees. So some employees I'm just seeing because of holiday and then illness. I have a little cold I'm working through still. And like still today, they were like, I was sitting there like, what happened to all these possible wellness centers and my job and my patients? And oh my gosh. I mean, even that moment when I asked for prayers online, I had spouses of employees of mine that are friends with me on Facebook messaging me like, my spouse is, you know, in tears and really upset and so worried, like my boss got shot, you know, like, are you okay? What can we do? Well, we're praying, you know. And it was like, wow, like the ability and the love, like to get from my employees, in addition to friends and family, like, I love you and I'm so glad you're alive. Like, that's humbling and amazing. My husband will sometimes laugh because he'll be like, who just texts you saying I love you now? And I'm like, oh, that's one of my employees. like what we do is so hard. We hug on each other in the hallways, like, oh, I love you.
He wants you to share the love. He's like, doesn't anyone love me?
Like, I'm sorry, your work isn't like that, babe.
Right. Man.
Yeah, but God is a princess. I'm going to keep just showing up.
So that's going to top the double dates record then. Your brother's like, no more double dates with you, right?
Well, we have a redo. They're coming over next Friday night to our house for dinner and a game night because it wasn't until I was on the call with 911 and I was like, I want to lead it with the bullet's not in me, but I just got shot, you know. They were like, what? You know, the dispatcher. And then it wasn't until at one point that she goes, where are you? And I explained that the rifle range guy was dismissive. So I went up to the main office and that they were being dismissive. And I'm like, here's some bunchers, come down. Like, what? So that's why we called. And because I was scared and because it's not okay. By the grace of God, I was standing there to talk about it and not dead. So, but the 911 lady, the minute she's like, so you're in a building? And I'm like, yes. And it didn't even click. And she was like, are you by a window? And I was like, yeah. She's like, duck away from the window. And I was like, well, no one's trying to kill me. You know, I was like, I don't think so. But of course I listened. But yes, my brother and his husband and his girlfriend and my husband were like, what are you doing? I'm like, she told me to get away from the window. I was like, oh gosh. Yes, but I just keep holding on to no weapon formed against me.
Yes. Nor knife, nor gun.
Knife, nor gun.
So this was the first time I had heard on the knife part. So where did the knife go? Like in your head, you said?
In the top of my head. Yes, in the top of my head, the crown right there. And when the person found me that was dating the guy whose apartment I was at, she I was using at the time, so I didn't even know that there was a knife in my head. So when she found me passed out on the ground, she was like shook me and like brought me back, you know, to being more alert. And I was like, what? You know, and so she brought me in the bathroom, and I'll never forget that image that like all of my hair was crusted to the side of my face, and my sweatshirt was full of blood, and the knife was just in the top of my head. Totally a God moment. And yeah.
They didn't, and here I am. I'm too inquisitive sometimes, people tell me. They were like, Sydney, use a filter. But I'm like, did it penetrate past your skull?
I know it did. I do not, it was stuck, but I do not believe it did because I did not require brain surgery.
Yeah.
I just went to the emergency room and they pulled it out and stitched me up and stopped the bleeding.
Oh my goodness.
Quite a lot of blood.
Maybe you have 9 lives, or I mean 7. Bad joke. Bad joke. I'm giving Winston jokes now.
I hope that I'm good with just 3.
I know. I know your husband's going to steer clear from you now. He's going to be like, "No, you're kind of a danger zone. I can't be seen in public." But
yeah, he's been holding tight. Last night we went to, my uncle is a head pastor of a church in the area, and so they had their service last night, a Christmas one. So we were always there, and a bunch of my other aunts and uncles were there. We picked up my mom. Yes, and so it was my first time seeing a bunch of my aunts and uncles, you know, from my dad's side. And yes, they were all like, what? And hugging me tight too, and just like, we're thanking God for a miracle again in your life. And it's just like, totally God gets the credit. I can't take any. I was literally sitting on a bench in the woods.
Yeah, I can't imagine when you get to heaven, he's like, all right, now you're allowed to come in. Well, Veronica, are there any particular scriptures? I know you shared a little bit with Matthew, and that resonates with you, but any particular scriptures that are top of mind?
Well, like the Matthew 19:26, man, this is impossible with God. All things are possible. But also one of my favorites is 1 John 3:18. My little children, let us love, not love in word or tongue, but in deed and in truth. It's about words and actions. That's how others can see God. Our words are important and our words matter. But love is the greatest commandment, but being and seeing and doing his truth in the world, I think, is the most important. So that resonates with me most. Action and truth.
Yeah, servanthood.
Yeah.
It's so powerful to actually walk that out and show love through serving. So how can our listeners connect with you?
On Instagram, we are at ATPWC, the initials for All Things Possible Wellness Center. So it's ATPWCMI. At one point, I thought we would expand, but we're Michigan it is. So ATPWCMI on Instagram. And then on Facebook, it's All Things Possible Wellness Center. All 3 locations will pop up. And then our website is atpwc.org. And the main number is 586-213-5505 that you could call or text And our amazing team of 6 full-time admin will help in any way they can to get you connected with the best therapist for you.
I love that. So, listeners, today, if you know somebody that needs help, they're going through whatever it may be, any kind of trauma, anxiety. First and foremost, we know that the Lord can do amazing things. He is a God of restoration, of healing, and He also provides those through places such as All Things Possible. So if you know of someone that really needs some help, she's got plenty of locations to pick from. And I'm glad that any person from her team, all 40, that's amazing to start from like 3-4 people to 40.
Yes. And it was just me in this little tiny room in Mount Clemens to start. And then God just kept building it. And I was like, I can't work at the psych hospital all day to fill my, pay my bills and do this at night. And I was like, okay, God, leap of faith. I'm going to start my own business with just you. Let's do it. And look what's happened.
Beautiful things when you do it through Christ, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Veronica, for being with me on the God Wink podcast and sharing your 2 stories. Oh my goodness. I heard the second one, but the first one was icing on it of wow, God does amazing things. So I hope that you continue sharing your God Wink stories with others moving forward. And listeners, please share this episode with those that want to be encouraged that God is in it. God sees everything, and He is your protector. So have a blessed week, everyone, and listen in on the next God Wink.
I want to give a big thank you to Office Evolution Troy for providing their podcast studio for us this afternoon to record. If you have any questions or you would like to book your own time in their podcast studio, give them a call at 586-788-9966. If today's God Wink story really hit home with you, we would love to hear about it through the God Wink community on Facebook. If you know of someone that needs to hear today's God Wink story, show them some love and tag them on the God Wink podcast. You never know how a God Wink story might change their day around for the better. If you or someone you know has a God Wink story that the world needs to hear, we want to hear it. Simply click the link within the podcast notes to send in your God Wink story. Until next time, remember, God's got you. Wink, wink.